So I have the pleasure of introducing Martin Ryzl, a former colleague at Sun. I also had the pleasure of using the Mobility Pack, no longer called Pack, Martin tells me, but back in 2000 when I was working at a startup, and enjoyed it very much then. And Martin, turn it over to you.
So good morning. My name is Martin Ryzl. I work for Sun Microsystems in Prague, Czech Republic. I'm software engineering manager of the Mobility Pack. So as John said, I started with Java ME support back in 2000. So at the time it was just a plugin, and later on it evolved into the full-featured IDE. So the topic of my presentation will be NetBeans Mobility. Since version 6.0 will come soon, so we are now middle of the development cycle, and I would like to show you so what's new in the Mobility Pack and what Java ME developers can use. So version 6.0 of NetBeans, so there will be a lot of changes. The most significant is the completely rewritten Java infrastructure, including editor. The editor is much faster. It provides a lot of features that are essentially in modern IDEs. But I'm not going to talk about the editor features. I'm going to focus on the features that should help Java ME developers to create applications very quickly. So I'm moving to first to introduction to Mobility Pack. So Mobility Pack, also we call it NetBeans Mobility now, is add-on for Java ME developers. There is support for several flavors of Java ME. The first and the most important for us is Java ME CLDC MIDP. And you can see on the slides the list of the most important features. There is Visual Designer for MIDP LCD UI. There is the whole solution for application porting, and-based build system, which is very flexible. I'm going to talk about that later. It integrates with most of the emulators for Java ME. That's very important because people usually want to test the applications on the emulators of devices. There are a lot of samples. There are wizards for generating end-to-end applications. And the NetBeans Mobility comes with a bundled wireless toolkit, which is an emulator, version 2.2 or 2.5. It depends on the milestone. There's also support for Java ME CLDC, which is more powerful platform. We can do visual development using the famous Matisse Visual Designer. It supports both Swing and AWT APIs. There's also support for development applications for Sony Ericsson UIQ, which is Symbian-based phones, Nokia Series 80, Savage phones, Ricoh printers. There is wireless toolkit for CDC, which is another Sun emulator, for Windows Mobile, which is represented by NSICOM virtual machine. The latest stable release is 5.5. It was released last year. 5.5.1, which is a minor update, but speaking about the Mobility Pack, so there are several improvements. Will be released next month. And we are also in middle of development cycle of 6.0. So we are now at the end of milestone 9.
Just a question. Do you see phones going to CDC or CLDC going to still be around for quite a long time?
So I see that since devices are getting more and more powerful, so there's going to be definitely move towards CDC. There is even possibility to run MIDP on top of CDC. So the NetBeans Mobility is an open source project. It's part of netbeans.org project, and we also position that as a platform for all Java ME tools. What does it mean? It means that it's really easy to extend this NetBeans Mobility support to add additional plugins, mainly deployments, integrations with other SDKs, also plugins for building of special applications. Who is the target audience for the NetBeans Mobility? So basically, we see two main developer groups. The first one are consumers. So typical users who develop other applications, and time to time, so they want to play with Java ME. They would like to design some cool applications for their phones. Such applications are usually simple for one or more devices, like you definitely want to share it with your friends. Visual tools are very important here. Since like you don't have a time to learn everything, whatever we can do in the visual tools development area, so it's very useful. Deployment on the real device, especially on your device, is very important because like you would like to test it immediately. I also see very important feature connection to existing services. It may be Flickr, it may be Google, so whatever. The other group is expert professional developers. They typically develop professional applications. These days, it's mostly games. And for them, like device fragmentation, I mean the variety across devices is very important. So they have to deal with it. LCD UI visual designer is probably not that interesting, but resource management, the possibility to do regular builds on dedicated machine, testing on real devices or collaboration work, that's very important. And also we know that strong editor support is a must, and like such professionals very often work with device database, which allows them to port the application to various devices. So I'm moving to next slide, and first thing I'd like to show is visual designer. So the visual designer in Mobility Pack, like the first visual designer is targeted on the standard MIDP API, which is LCD UI. It supports flow and screen design. So you can see that on the right top side of the slide. So that's the flow designer. So each icon there represents one screen of the application. The screens can be connected using commands or other events. And basically, it's very easy to design like using drag and drop like several screens and the connections between them. On the very right side, you can see the component palette with available components, and like it's even possible to put custom components on the palette. Then there is a screen designer, which allows me to design the individual screen. Again, it's using drag and drop, and I can even change the properties of the items directly on the screen. And you can see the result on the left side. So I'll be showing that during the demo, so you will have the feel so how quickly such an application can be created. And it's mostly targeted to consumer developers. So the next slide is just a summary of what I have just said. In 6.0, so there are several improvements. The first one is the possibility to add custom components. There is an API, so anyone can design the components and distribute together with Mobility Pack or independently. And we've added more components into standard distribution. So there is a splash screen, there is a wait screen, which is a special component which can display some kind of progress while there is a task associated with it running on the background. There is a support for SVG components, there is login screen, screen for sending SMSs, PIM, and which is personal information management, and file browser. There are more advanced features like optimization. We can detect unused commands and components. So like it allows me to optimize my application. So so Java ME, so every byte counts. There is a new game designer which helps developers to create like the whole levels or animated sprites. So basically the idea is that like user gets a set of images from graphic artists, and then like you can easily generate the code which splits up the PNG file into frames, and like then it displays the right frames during the animation. There is SVG support. Well, it's been there since version 5.5, but it's going to be further improved. We are still working on data binding, which is basically connection between various data sources and the UI. And so, for instance, you have a web service connected to UI, and so all the results, all the values are automatically synchronized. So the next visual designer is the Matisse UI builder for GUI and personal profile. Again, to give you an idea how it works. So on the left side of the slide, so you can see a sample application created by Matisse. You see the help lines that allow me to align the components together. Then there is an example how to deploy the application on Savage device and how it actually looks on the real device. Next slide is just a summary. So I'm getting to a very important feature for expert developers, which is application porting. So before I continue, so the device fragmentation is one of the biggest issues of Java ME. So it's caused by so many different devices. There may be different screen sizes, different capabilities. There may be color displays or black and white. Some of the devices may have touch screen, the other just a simple keyboard. And of course, there may be some problems in the implementation. So this leads to the situation where developers have to build and maintain tens or hundreds of versions of the same applications. They have to manage it somehow. They have to build it at once, test on various devices. So we have developed a very unique system for handling of such application ports. We call them project configurations. So basically, the idea is that whenever I need to port my application to another device, I just create a new project configuration. By default, all settings are inherited from the default configuration. And by default, new jar file and JUT file are created. So you see the flow. Basically, you see the flow on the slides. So the first step is to create a new configuration. Then there is an optional step. I can base the configuration on some existing configuration that I have created in my previous project, or I can use existing device database. So this is very important because such a configuration can be predefined with all the attributes and information about the real device.
So does NetBeans come with or is it a downloadable module to sort of download all a number of phones configuration? Because developers would know. I, as a developer, don't know what's the configuration for a phone or not. I would rather that there was a way to just import everything.
Can you repeat the question? So it'll be on the video.
OK, fine. So is the question whether the NetBeans comes with the
Yeah, I mean, so if I'm a developer, I don't really want to set up these phone configurations. I want to just update NetBeans and get maybe 100 different popular phones.
Predefined configuration.
Predefined configuration.
OK, the question is that whether there are any predefined configurations. So that's basically the idea. So whenever you create a project, you have only one configuration. Because we assume that in most cases, the same application will run on all the devices. So whenever you encounter a problem, so you can easily go to this management software and you select from the database, you just select all the phones that you would like to support, you click OK, and all the configurations are automatically created.
So that's the question. That database that you select them from, you download that's part of NetBeans?
I think that I should deep dive into the details a little bit. So what NetBeans provides is an API for plugging in the database, and then there are two basic implementations. The first implementation is that we can work with all existing configurations that you have ever created. The second is that we can get the values automatically from installed emulators. Sometimes it's not enough, but we work with other about other vendors of device database, and those, like the data, may be available through third parties. There is a lot of work behind the creation of such a database. So we rather partner with someone else than to create our own. So one of the potential candidates is J2ME Polish, which is a very well-known solution for application porting. Since NetBeans has a open architecture and like everything can be installed as a plugin, so it's a very natural solution. So back to the slide. So the next step is sometimes it happens that I have to use like another code fragment for particular device. People usually use it by using preprocessor. So we have developed a unique, we call it commenting preprocessor, which basically means that all the preprocessor directives are in comments. So you can see the syntax on the picture. And one of the requirements is that it always has to be valid Java source code. So on the fly, so our editor on the fly comments out all the blocks which are not active in given configuration. So whenever I switch configuration, so the whole source file gets recommented. And also, there was another requirement, which is that this solution should be version control friendly. So you can imagine if we recommend to one configuration and back, so then the source code would change again and again. So it's designed in a way that like it's always stored on a disk in the default configuration, so which is still the same, and it just gets recommended on the fly when the document is loaded. And when it's stored, it again gets recommended back to the default configuration. There is also a possibility to change whatever attribute of the project and application. So for instance, there may be a different set of resources. I can have images for a phone with small display. I can have images for a phone with big display. And I can easily set up one configuration to use that set of resources and the other to use another set of resources. So you can see that on the on the left side. So there are two folders with resources. One for smaller screen resolution and one for bigger. And as I said before, so the one advantage is that like I can hit compile everything and it builds tens or hundreds applications in one step. So all results are stored in folders with the name that corresponds to the to that configuration name. So it's on the left side. So you see several versions of the same application. So one is generic one, and there is one for Nokia Series 40, one for Nokia Series 60. So the next slide is about the just summary of application porting. What's new in 6.0 is this device database SPI. So as I said before, the default implementation is for existing templates and properties obtained from the emulators. So now I'm getting to the end-based build system. So I said before that everything, so all projects in NetBeans are end. So it's the folder with sources, and then there is one main build XML file, and then a bunch of standard end properties. That's it. The main build system is very well commented, and it contains lots of hooks. So which means that if I'm not happy with what I got, so I can easily add my call to my target. So for instance, after packaging of the application, so I can run another set of optimizations or so. I can easily plug in my own preprocessor. Another advantage is that I can build the application from command line. So you see that on the slide as an example. So what's new and very new in the NetBeans Mobility 6.0 is we call it advanced build system. basically, the whole build script consists of small building blocks. I mean, there is a fragment of end code for just compilation. There is a fragment of unscript for obfuscation and so on. All those fragments are registered in the system. I can easily plug in another one. And then NetBeans combines everything and generates the right build script for me. So for instance, I decide to download a plugin for more sophisticated obfuscator. By default, we use ProGuard, but there are several commercial. So I install it, and immediately, like, my build scripts get at least those parts that managed by the IDE gets regenerated, and I can start using the new obfuscator. I don't need to change anything. Or I use it as an example, and I will be showing that during the demo. So for instance, RIM BlackBerry. So they use different packaging than just standard MIDP. So we have a plugin which provides this functionality. So I just installed the plugin. There are a few additional AND targets, and everything gets connected together, and it works out of the box. Each project configuration can be built its own way. So I use, as an example, I use the MIDP applications that can be built on top of either CLDC or CDC. Or also I can develop engEDU. engEDU means swing for Java ME. So I can build the same application for Java SE and also for CDC.
Can you run these and from command line, or does it have to be through NetBeans?
Yes, it can be run from command line.
Does it require tasks and stuff from NetBeans?
It requires, like, the MIDP stuff requires Java ME and extensions that are provided together with NetBeans, but you can take the library and you can distribute it with your project. So it is just a small library which does, there are special tasks for updating manifests and jars and for running pre-verification, obfuscation, and like all that stuff. It's not part of standard end.
Can it also launch the emulator through command line?
Yes. The only thing that we recommend to users is, like, if you check out this project from CVS repository, there are too many references because you usually use many emulators and many such things. So we recommend to open it at least once in NetBeans because it will help you to resolve all the references. It's useful, especially when you, like, installed the emulators in other directories than standard ones. OK, so the next important part is integration with emulators. So you can see how it looks in the IDE. So there is, we call it Java Platform Manager, which contains links to all the emulators and SDKs. And for MIDP, for CLDC MIDP, so we can automatically detect all installed emulators, which means that I just have to go to the manager, run it to auto detection, and it detects all the emulators, and I can start using it. And the auto detection means that the NetBeans gets information about the class path, about the device capabilities, what else? Screen size, and so on. So basically, you don't need to do that manually. There is also a possibility to quick run the project using whatever emulator. So the automatic detection takes advantage of UEI, which stands for Unified Emulator Interface. It's an open source project hosted by UEI dev java.net. And it's just a specification of the layout of the SDK of the emulator, so like where the IDE can find the emulator process and pre-verify process, and where are the Java docs and so on. Currently, the supported SDKs are Sony Ericsson's, Nokia, Motorola, BenQ, Siemens, and there are many more. So we usually work with the main one. There's also a possibility, so like if everything fails, so I can specify, we call it custom emulators, which means that I just type in command line and point the IDE to the class path, and then I can use it. And there are also, like, there may be predefined templates for well-known emulators. So for instance, the RIM BlackBerry plugin uses this model. So there is like predefined command line for RIM BlackBerry, and we just like find the location, and then everything works seamlessly. CDC is much more difficult. So basically, the main issue is that there is no packaging model for CDC. So in addition to the platform, so we also have to provide some specific packaging. Nevertheless, at the moment, so NetBeans Mobility supports Sony Ericsson UIQ on Symbian, Nokia Series 80, Windows Mobile, Savage, Ricoh printers, Sun wireless toolkit for CDC. Packaging-wise, it means that we have to be able to package applications for Symbian, so they are called SIS files. Savage defines JNLP file. There may be specific packaging on deployment on Windows mobiles. So another feature is deployment. So there is a variety of deployment methods. So you see the list on the slide. So we have deployment on real devices at the moment. It's Sony Ericsson phone, Windows Mobile. We are working on deployment on Nokia phones. There are also like other web-based deployments, FTP, secure copy, and WebDAV. Very important part is wizards for generation of end-to-end, which basically means the server-side applications running somewhere on a web server, and then the midlet accessing the server side. So basically, there are two versions of the communication. The first one is Java ME Web Services, also known as JSR 172. And if there are phones which don't support JSR 172, so the ID can generate a proxy. It's on the picture below. The proxy would communicate with the web service or with the server side using SOAP. And then there is a special optimized binary protocol. Well, binary, so the ID generates sources for the protocol, so it can be further modified. But basically, it's like it simply packages all the arguments into the plain HTTP protocol. So other features, the mobility pack comes with bundled obfuscator. It's ProGuard. The UI for operation is really easy, so yeah, I usually go just to project properties and set up the highest obfuscation. If it doesn't work for some reason, so then we use lower grades. So the application can be signed. I can sign individual configurations independently, so I can use several different signing keys. Deployment, I've already described that. OK, so now it's time for the demo. So I'm switching to the NetBeans IDE. So what you see right now is NetBeans 6.0 milestone 9. You see the welcome screen instead of editor. And the first thing I have to do is to create a new project. So there are many predefined projects. So there is the whole category for mobility. And I'm starting with just a mobile application, which means in this case, it's CLDC MIDP application. So the next step is easy. So I just have to provide the name of the application. If I'm not happy with the default location, so I may change it. I can tell the ID whether it should generate the hello midlet for me or not. So I'll create the midlet from scratch, so I don't need that. So the next step is the default emulator for the project. So by default, there is a wireless toolkit, so I'll choose it. But you see, I've already installed emulator for Nokia devices, Sony Ericsson, and wireless toolkit. So next step is I can even specify device, because like some emulators have several device skins, and also like device configuration and device profile. So that's mandated by the specification. So the next step is the work with the device database. So if I, at this point, would like to create versions for other phones, so I just open this, and OK, so let's say I'd like to have also version for Nokia Series 40 and for Sony Ericsson. So there is more devices. So let's do just one of them. That's it. So the project has been created. It created all the configurations. It created the build scripts, the end build scripts. And I can, provided that there is the hello world midlet, so I can start compilation of the application and running. Since I haven't...
Did you have to write those two configurations you selected?
Sorry?
The two configurations you selected, did you have to write those yourselves?
No, like it was automatically detected. So now I have to create a new midlet. So again, I used context action, which is new, and there is a bunch of predefined templates. So I'm using Visual Midlet right now. So let's call it hello midlet, and it will be in a package hello. That's it. So the midlet got automatically added into the application descriptor and the manifest, so I don't need to care about that. So like ID is checking for everything. So, and the Visual Midlet got opened in the Visual Designer. So what I would like to do right now, I would like to create a simple application that would consist of a splash screen. Then there would be some kind of initial menu, one dialog that would display hello world, one that would display, for instance, some alert or so, like several, like kind of demo of multiple components, okay? So I have started with the mobile device icon. It represents starting point and end point of the application. So all arrows that lead from this mobile device like represent start, and like all arrows that lead to this icon represent exit. There are two different states, started and resumed. So I can like design the application that would behave differently when I start it for the first time, or if I resume that from post state. Okay, so the first thing is that I'm using a splash screen, which is the NetBeans specific component. It's available as an extension again, like this extension gets automatically added to the project. Then there's gonna be list. I'm using list as a menu. Let's say text box. Wait screen, it's quite important. And what else? Let's do file browser. I need more space. So now it's time to connect the application together. From started, I would like to get to the splash screen. From splash screen, I would like to get to the list. So now it's time to design the menu. So I need a couple of list elements. So there's exit. One would be called download, help, and file browse. So exit should take me to the exit. Help will be represented by text box, and I have to get back from the help to the initial menu. What else is there? Download goes to the wait screen, file browse to the file browser, and again I need a few back commands here, and let's say also one alert. So now it's time to modify the individual components. So I'm using Screen Designer to do that. So I have added text my application to the splash screen. So next is the text box which represents my help. Help is here. So wait screen, I'm gonna use wait screen to do some kind of business logic. So in this case, I'm representing the business logic by thread sleep. And that's it. And something to this form. It will be string item. Done. So let's start the application.
Execution code.
Okay. So I'm rebuilding the whole application again. So here is the application running on the Wireless Toolkit emulator. So I can start it. So you see the splash screen. So here is the initial menu. So this is the wait screen. So I forgot to attach the text that would display the progress, but it's been done. So file browser, it asks me for a permission to do that. And so you see I can browse the files on the mobile phone. So finally the help, and I'm done.
Can you, does NetBeans provide any easy way to upload the phone application on the phone?
Yes, of course.
And,
Let me try
like
it.
on Windows, if you have connected the phone to the USB, can it upload it?
So the question is whether the IDE can help me to upload the application on a device or on the net. Yes, there are several devices supported. Not all the devices support this upload. So basically, we support Sony Ericsson's phones that come with this capability, and also like I can show you how to do that with the Java virtual machine running on Windows mobile device. So let me connect the device using USB. And to do that, so I just have to go to the project properties and set up the deployment. So I'm using a Windows Mobile. It uses the default predefined version, but I can override it in the project. And I'm pressing OK. Now there is a deploy project action. So we will see some progress, and hopefully it's visible to the audience.
No, but maybe you can pass it around.
OK, so do you see the Java logo? So it started the virtual machine, and now I just have to confirm the installation. So the application gets installed. I mean, the platform recognizes all the push registry and security and so on. And I'm moving here. So the next step is just run it. You see my application. So here is the menu.
Yeah, I've seen it. Yeah, thank you. Does it support Motorola phones also?
Yes, of course. Well, there is no deployment on the Motorola phones yet.
Okay.
So I'm not sure whether the phones support it or not. OK, so this is the example of development of real application and deploying it on the device. OK, so next thing I'd like to show you is how actually some parts of the IDE are implemented. So first, I'd like to start with the RIM BlackBerry plugin. It's already opened. So RIM BlackBerry is an example of how I can modify the build process of the project. So what you see here is the NetBeans plugin called RIM BlackBerry project, and here are the fragments of the build process. So you see that there are 5 small end tasks registered by the plugin. So one is for initialization, for running, for debugging, and for creating the code file, which is essential for BlackBerry. So if I open that, so you see it's really just one end target that I have to register. Then there is a customizer panel, which is, again, important for setting all the properties and for displaying that to the user, and that's it. I can build the module or the plugin and reload it in the development ID, which is the ID that's running. So at the end of this action, so this plugin should be installed in the same instance of the ID, and I should be able to use it. So you see the progress.
Is the support available for Palm-based devices also, like Trio?
Well, the problem that we have is that Palm.
There was a port that Sun had
Yes,
a while
but
back.
unfortunately, that project has been stopped and it's not available anymore. OK, so the plugin has been now built and it's installed here. So let me create a new project. And one thing I need is to go to Java platform and add the platform for RIM BlackBerry. Okay, you see that it's here. So suddenly that platform was automatically recognized. I'm clicking next, detected, I can start using that. If I go to this application, I can set it up as a default emulator. Done. So let's build it and run it. So it takes some time to start the BlackBerry emulator.
Can you make changes to the plugin and reload it again?
Yes, I can. Starting. So here's my Hello Midlet running on BlackBerry. And if I check the structure of the project, so you will see there are like additional files created for BlackBerry under this directory. So you see there is a COD file and CSO file, so which is like BlackBerry specific. The same is true for the deployment. Deployment is again simple API, so where I need to register just a few lines of end code, and then there is a customizer for the deployment. That's it.
You showed us the deployment through locally connected devices. Is there also a way to deploy through SMS?
There is no such provider, but it would be possible to design that. But basically, there's what we support is that I can set up FTP deployment and upload it to the server. Then the only thing you have to do is just send an SMS with the URL to someone. Okay, so I think that I would have enough content for more demos. But I would like to invite, at least for a few minutes, David Kaspar. So you probably may have noticed the nice visual library that we use for the Flow Designer. And this visual library has been written by David. So David, please come here. And we would like to show you just a teaser for possible next presentation that would deep dive in this visual library, which is now part of NetBeans platform.
Okay, so it has to be really quick. NetBeans IDE or NetBeans project is not only about IDE, it's also about the NetBeans platform, which allows you a set of modules for regular work. For example, if you have an application and you would like to make it rich, you can use Windows system or a modular system or auto-update features. Part of the NetBeans platform is a visual library that's targeted for making your application visual. Really simply, fast, or it's targeted to be intuitive, UI and fast UI. It's programmed really simply, so it's using similar programming model as a Swing. It supports both general and also supports graph-oriented modeling and visualizations. It's a part of the NetBeans platform, and therefore it's open source, and you can freely use it, even as based on the NetBeans platform, but also as a standalone product. but just using with 2 jars included into your application. Here is the screenshot of the mobile designer that you've seen previously in the demo. So nothing special about that. Here is totally different visualization, which is focused on the general visualization of, for example, this one is just reports editor, where you can edit sheets of reports, basically. Here is another screenshot provided through the NetBeans Enterprise Pack, which allows you to edit CASA editoring and VSDL file editors. Also, again, totally different editors. For example, the screenshot on the right side, it allows the composition of the general visualization together with the graph-oriented things. Here is the small list of the features that it allows you. For example, I can name animation support or level of details widget, which allows you to show more components as you zoom in into the scene. So the conclusion is that you can, if you are interested in this project, you can visit NetBeans, Graph NetBeans org site, or you can write us an email to the mailing list. Also, I would like to mention that we recently are going to release a book related to NetBeans platform itself. Thank you.